My wife cheated with her infamous client, and I chose revenge over saving our broken marriage. My wife is a careerist, yet her love of work has wrecked her, and she now regrets her bad actions. One evening, my wife arrived home late from work as I was watching breaking news on television. "Boy, you won't believe who hired me to represent them today," she said excitedly. "David Bridges," I replied, surprised. "How did you know? Were you in the news?" I pointed at the television hanging on the wall. She looked at the screen, and there she was. However, it was an older photograph, most likely obtained from the firm's website. That was her. She had joined David Bridges' team of lawyers. It came as no surprise. Before I urged her to quit working 100-hour weeks, she was one of the best celebrity defense attorneys in the country. I wasn't some primitive guy who was against his wife's career. I just wanted to spend more than a short moment with her every month. It's been 2 years since then. She was representing a senator accused of murdering one of his staff members. I sensed his guilt, and I doubt she was totally convinced of his innocence. Nonetheless, she meticulously analyzed every piece of evidence, looking for even the smallest clue to use in his defense. In the end, she was able to get a hung jury for the defendant. The district attorney's decision not to retry him astonished the nation. I presented her with divorce papers during the trial. On the third day, she had spent sleeping in her office. Eventually, she asked me what she could do to save our relationship. I suggested that she quit her employment. Despite being in our late 30s, we were financially secure with more money than we could possibly spend, and some of our riches came from her clients. I also enjoyed a great career as a radio talk show host. My syndicated political talk show ranked in the top 10 nationally and was #1 in some locations. She agreed to lower her workload to a consulting position and committed to starting a family alongside me. While she listened to the experts debate her client and the possibility of assisting in his exoneration, I cuddled our son, Mikey. The term "get him off" bothered me. It conveyed uncomfortable connotations. I never suspected her of infidelity. She cherished her reputation too much to have extramarital affairs and avoided any behaviors that could ruin her image. My issue was not her loyalty, but her unwavering commitment to her work. My thoughts were noticeably bereft of the assumption that her love for me would keep her from stress. I was positive she cared about me, but her primary interest was her career. Her consulting career made her a popular guest on TV discussion shows, where she provided legal insight. She used to appear on television every day, delighting in the spotlight. "Are you upset?" she inquired during the commercial breaks. "What are your thoughts?" I complained. "Mikey has to be changed." Taking our youngster to his room, I left her unsure how to respond, which suited me perfectly. I enjoyed keeping her off balance. She lived on control, and I enjoyed disturbing her routine. She followed me, hoping to reassure me. "It will not be as previously," she said. "I'm not the team's leader, but rather one of its members." I responded noncommittally. She concentrated her attention on Mikey. "Here you go, little man. All clean and dry." Mikey giggled as I teased him, which made me smile. I blew a raspberry on his round tummy, which elicited even more laughter from him. "Boy, it's only a tax evasion case. They only need my help in picking the jury," she said. "Of course," I said as I moved past her and back into the family room. "You're overreacting," she said. "No, I do not think so," I responded in a childish manner. "This may be a huge opportunity for us. Simply having name recognition will not suffice," I interrupted after putting Mikey in his playpen. "What? Not us, Alicia. This is beneficial for you, but I have a feeling it will be the end for us," she shouted. "That is ridiculous." I shook my head and picked up my keys from the credenza. "Your food is in the oven, keeping warm. I'm heading to the lounge." David Bridges, our former state governor, received a barrage of criticism after announcing his candidacy for the forthcoming presidential election. Allegations appeared, accusing him of failing to disclose millions of dollars in alleged payments from a foreign corporation for unknown reasons on his tax filings. He was also indicted on election interference allegations related to his prior gubernatorial bid. The idea of trial piqued my interest. While I had qualms about my wife resuming legal practice, in the privacy of a sophisticated cigar bar near my studio, I sipped a Davidoff Churchill as fellow customers acknowledged me. Our exchanges were brief unless explicitly requested otherwise. Despite my star status, my appearance as a regular guest quickly became routine. "Boyd, help yourself to some of my scotch," a familiar face offered. His name eluded me. "Thank you," I responded, pouring a large drink from his decanter. "I saw the news." "I thought you would need a heavy drink," he said. "You're not wrong," I admitted, raising an imagined toast before retiring to the quietest section of the room. I inhaled deeply, taking a long drag off my cigar before gently exhaling. For a second, I wondered if my reaction had been excessive. However, I ultimately confirmed my conviction. I filed for divorce because of her rigorous work schedule during big cases. Only after she agreed to quit did I contemplate reconciling. I felt no shame for imposing that condition. She'd had a decade of professional achievement at the top levels, and I wanted to start a family while we still could. However, when she started another significant trial without informing me, it seemed like a betrayal I hadn't expected. Perhaps I might have agreed if she had asked for my opinion, but it seems improbable. Regardless, I wanted to be a part of the decision-making process. My focus switched to the TV across the room. Alicia appeared on the television again, beaming. I recognized the painting behind her and knew she was in our living room. I hoped Mikey would start to cry. She devoured those hosts, effectively leading them to assume she had answered their questions without actually telling them what they thought. It was a demonstration of skill. Then one of the hosts, who happened to be a golfing companion of mine, asked, "Will your husband be refiling the divorce paperwork?" "Excuse me?" Alicia exclaimed, taken aback. "As a condition of your husband abandoning the divorce proceedings against you, you agreed not to take on any more trial clients. This seems to be a breach of your agreement." I promptly texted him, "I owe you a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle for your surprise question. I can guarantee you that my hubby completely supports my work choices," she said, visibly flustered, which I enjoyed. "No, he does not," I interjected, openly provoking laughs from people who knew me. My phone vibrated a few moments later. "Boyd, I'm Dana Collins from The Times. Do you mind if I ask you some questions concerning your wife's recent actions?" "Hello, Dana. It has been too long. We should meet up for lunch sometime. Maybe even bring you back on the show." "That sounds wonderful, but how about the questions?" "Actually, I'd like to make a statement." "Sure. I was caught by surprise and absolutely blindsided. That could easily be the headline for my story. Is there anything else you would like to share? Perhaps some context. As of now, she hasn't addressed those past issues. We're still happy together." "Thank you, Boyd. We'll chat soon." Dana was a popular rising star in the journalistic profession. I'd had her on my show several times as a favor to her boss. We made a mutually advantageous deal. My phone rang again, so I silenced it. I knew I couldn't find serenity otherwise. The media sharks were circling, especially given that I was one of their own murderous cannibals. When I entered our bedroom later that night, Alicia said, "It will not be the same as before." She looked lovely in her floor-length black satin nightgown. The slit on the left side terminated mid-thigh, and the lace cups barely covered her. Clearly, it was not meant for sleeping. "It makes no difference whether it is the same or not," I said, attempting to escape her sight. "You understand what's at risk. It is different now. We have Mikey," I chuckled. "If you feel that having a son will stop me from desiring a career-oriented wife, you are mistaken. If you return to your previous habits, you're out, sweetheart. We're going too far." "I do not want to dispute, Alicia. The time to talk about this was before you accepted the job. We're now coping with the consequences. We'll be okay. You will see. Now, get to bed. I want to show you how much I adore you." When she read my comments in the Times the next day, I expected her to be angry. I decided to take advantage of the fact that I have an attractive wife while it was still feasible. We hugged and kissed before collapsing on the bed and making love. She managed to say, "I love you," before falling asleep. I wondered how she'd feel about me in the morning. "Damn it," she yelled as I entered the kitchen the next morning, taking me by surprise. "You took me completely off guard," I interrupted her before she could finish. "I merely said the truth." "You didn't need to spill the beans like that," she exclaimed. I shrugged. "It's finished now. This will be the topic of the day," I said, buoyed by chuckling. "For once, they'll be paying attention to something other than your client." Her client had dominated the news for weeks prior to their indictment and every day since then. I gave her a short kiss on the cheek and chose to grab coffee and breakfast on my way to work to avoid more conflict. I wondered how long it would take her to get back to her 16-hour workdays. "We're not finished talking about this," she yelled after me. I knew she was correct. I arrived at my studio to see commotion. A young college student handled the phones, while a sound engineer, a tech specialist, and a producer assisted me. Unlike some anchors, I enjoyed conducting my own news research rather than depending on a crew. Good grief, Boyd. The phones are ringing incessantly today. I gave her a coffee and advised, "Turn off the ringer, Missy. Allow them to go to voicemail, and you can screen out the important calls for me." "Thank you, boss. This will make things easier." I walked into my office to find my producer already there. "Morning, Boyd," Rose inquired about my well-being. "Perfectly fine, Rosie. What is the plan for today? The Bridges story is difficult to avoid, especially now that you're drawn into it. I am not dragged inside. She is my wife. The disparity remains the same. Let's invite Dana Collins on the show. We'll talk about it, and I'll follow her lead with remarks, but make it obvious that this is not an interview. I noticed her piece this morning. She seems to have a personal vendetta against your wife. I chuckled. No, she has a special spot for me. I overheard her gossiping once. I use it to my advantage. Boy, don't play with her emotions. I assume this metropolis would have chewed her up and spit her out by now. Don't overlook a farmer's daughter. She's as tough as nails. All right, I'll contact her and set things up. Thank you, Rose. Also, see if Dan Nan can join. I loved what he did to my wife on his show last night. Having contacts is really beneficial. Okay, Boyd, you'll be on air in 5, 4, 3, and 2. Rose motioned toward me as the on-air sign lighted. Good afternoon, listeners. I'm Boyd Baxter, your entertaining host. Dana Collins of The Times joins me in the studio today. Hello, Dana. Hello, Boyd. I'm delighted to be here, especially given what's happening with your wife. She smiled slightly, and I shook my head. She was wearing a short skirt, legs crossed, revealing a glimpse of her stocking top. I've always liked a good pair of legs, especially when dressed in black nylon. Yes, I thought you would bring it up. Indeed, my wife has agreed to work as a jury consultant for David Bridges' legal team. She no longer actively participates in courtroom representation. A jury consultant? Dana inquired. Is that the story she gave you? I gave her a glare. All she did was dangle her sneaker from her appealing foot and smile. It appears that your wife left out a few details. Bridges insiders tell me she's the newest member of their legal team, and she's taking the lead on defense. I could care less about what anonymous sources have to say. I never rely on them, I responded with a shrug. She chuckled. This is because you rely on stories from folks like me to fill your radio show. Whoa, I exclaimed with a note of fury in my voice. I'm not a journalist and don't claim to be. I simply conduct a show where I discuss my thoughts on the day's events. She smiled and made a quip. And today's event is your wife coming out of retirement to deceive you. Let us take some calls, I interjected, hoping to guide the subject away from perilous terrain. I was already losing control of it. Damn those legs. Line 1. You're awake, I said, avoiding a glance at Dana, who was crossing her legs in the opposite direction. I did not lie to you. I am merely a jury consultant. My wife's defensive voice came over the speakers. Well, if it isn't my lovely wife, Alicia. Hello, honey. I will be home on time today. We're eating pork roast for dinner. Dana joined in. Hello, Mrs. Baxter. You are well aware that my last name is Taylor, she retorted. After we got married, my wife decided not to add my surname. She had already built a professional reputation under her own name and chose to maintain it. Understood, Dana responded to Mrs. Taylor. Nonetheless, Alicia interjected, stop creating stories. My function on the legal team is exclusively to assist with jury selection. I get it, Dana replied. Okay, ladies, let's leave it at that. Alicia, we'll talk about this further at home, but let's move on to the next caller. Following the show, I yelled. That was a complete nightmare. Dana, slipping her shoes on, retorted. I felt things went nicely. She had removed them throughout the show to play with me, annoying me. You owe me for that, I muttered. She chuckled. How about I treat you to dinner? Forget about the pork roast. Her intense look unsettled me. I knew she had feelings for me, but it seemed like I was bait and she was a hungry shark. I'll pass, Dana, perhaps another time. I quickly exited before doing something dumb, avoiding supper with the stunning redhead. Back home, I prepared the roast by coating it in oil, combining my seasonings, and rubbing them into the flesh. 30 minutes later, I placed the pan in the oven. I handed Mikey his evening meal and opened a beer. It was unbelievable, but I felt myself torn between trusting my wife and the anonymous source Dana indicated, and it was making me insane. A little more than 3 hours later, I had the table set, a delicious bottle of Chardonnay chilling in an ice bucket, and a flawlessly cooked roast waiting to be cut. Alicia still hadn't arrived home, but she was just 30 minutes late. While I ate my salad, the minutes passed, and she was now an hour behind schedule. There was no call or text from her. To keep the roast warm, I returned it to the oven and made myself a martini. Despite the temptation, I refrained from contacting her. When she arrived an hour and a half late, I knew there would be an argument, and I was determined to win. By the 2.5-hour mark, I turned off the oven and decided to dine out. The notification arrived 3 minutes after my steak was served. Where are you now? I set the phone down and took another mouthful of the nicely cooked steak. There's an inexplicable delight in eating a steak cooked at a high temperature. I was resolved not to let her intrude on my joy. 5 minutes later, another SMS appeared. This time, just a question mark. I relished a mouthful of creamed spinach, delighting in the delectable flavors. That evening's meal was a success. 2 minutes later, my phone rang with a call. I forwarded it to voicemail, recognizing her irritation at being ignored. It felt like a silent win on our unspoken conflict. Wasn't I being mature? By the time my steak was gone, my wine glass was empty, and the last scraps of spinach were scraped from the plate. I still hadn't answered the third call. It was 9:30 p.m. when I pulled into my garage at home, and she waited in the doorway, arms crossed. I imagined she was upset and attempted to match her expression with a scowl. "Where have you been, and why do you ignore me?" she yelled. I chuckled. "You already know. Have you even remembered to take the roast out of the oven?" I walked into the kitchen and noticed the roast lying in the pan on the burner. "You haven't eaten. Typical. What did you have at work? Pizza? Chinese?" "Look, things won't always be like this. I interrupted. "I don't care what you were doing. I care that you were aware I was preparing dinner for us, and you did not call to let me know you would be working late. I apologize. You know how frantic things got when—" She halted. I replied, "Yes, I understand how it goes. I filed for divorce over that. Remember, you always forget that you have a husband waiting at home, except that now there is also a child at home. Did you even realize Mikey wasn't here? I figured he was with you. Wait, where is he now? You realize you're a bad wife when you're on a case, and it turns out you're a bad mother as well." She slapped me. I massaged my cheek and left the kitchen. "Boyd, wait, I apologize." I continued walking and exited through the front doors. She started calling for me as I walked across our lawn to my neighbor's house. She was watching after Mikey for me. He was resting well in the playpen she'd set up in her living room for her youngster, not moving. As I took him back to my house, Alicia remained mute and put out her arms, silently pleading for Mikey. "It is unfair. You should have told me he was next door. I could have spent some time with him when he was awake," she said. "Indeed, it is unfair. However, there is also the issue of you not informing me when you will be home. I was upset with you when I called into your show. You and that woman treated me disrespectfully. Speaking of which, please do not refer to my show as such. I loathe surprises. Therefore, we should always be on the same page. After all, we are supposed to be husband and wife." She lied. "Boyd, I am not the case's principal investigator. Only time will tell, right? I am going to bed." "Ever heard of James Anderson?" Dana questioned the next afternoon. She stopped me in the parking garage as I was heading to my car after the show. I felt like I was in a scene from Until the President's Men. "No, should I have?" I replied. "He's widely regarded as the best behavior analyst in the country. He has been involved in almost every high-profile jury trial in the last 3 years. And according to my insider, David Bridges recently hired him as a jury consultant." "So what is your wife's part in all this, Dana? What is your point of view here? Seriously, are you attempting to foment division between me and my wife?" She shrugged and retorted, "I am only asking inquiries, Boyd. It is part of my job. Then find someone else to ask and leave that out of your damn story." I unlocked my car door, climbed in, and mistakenly slammed it shut, hurting my shoulder and yelping in pain. "Really slick," she giggled and waved as I drove away, catching a glimpse of her sparkling nude stockings in the rearview mirror. At 6 o'clock, I served Mikey's dinner and made myself a sandwich with the leftover roast, which turned out rather excellent. Alicia arrived late again without texting or calling. An hour later, she rushed through the garage door. "I apologize. I got caught up and was unable to reach out." "When exactly did you catch up?" I inquired. "What do you mean? I mean, you were not physically restrained, correct? You may have texted me while attending a meeting with other lawyers or reading a legal book." "Boyd, I apologized." "Apologies, Alicia. These aren't enough this time. You should spend time with your son before I put him to bed." Disappointed, I left the room and went to my basement man cave. We expected Alicia to follow Mikey, but she didn't. I was looking forward to the clash, feeling agitated by the scenario. During halftime of the Thursday night football game, I went into the kitchen to get a bottle of water. However, my genuine aim was to discreetly monitor my wife. I discovered her eating ice cream and looking at something on her tablet. She noticed my presence and looked up. "We need to talk about this, Boyd," she added. "There is nothing to discuss. You have returned to work. However, you appear to have relapsed to your former behaviors. Frankly, if you're not misleading me, your main focus should be jury selection preparation." She averted her sight and for the first time did not deny the accusation of deception. I continued, "So that's the end of it. I refuse to play second fiddle to your job any longer. I will update the divorce documents and resubmit them this week." "Damn it, Boyd. We are not getting divorced. I keep promising you that this time will be different." "Sure, 2 days into your new work, you're already late and not phoning in. It feels like déjà vu to me. It's only the beginning. Trust me, things will change. I have a lot of catching up to do on this case. Catching up on what? You are meant to be guiding them on jury selection. You don't understand, Boyd. There's a lot more involved than you realize. Yes, anything. I turned and walked away. She rushed in front of me and placed her hand on my chest. I swear it will not be like previously. Prove it. She grabbed me into a hug, tears flowing down her face. Despite my better judgment, I decided to give her another chance. It lasted for 3 days. On a sunny Sunday morning, I was playing peekaboo with Mikey when she entered the room. I need to go to the office for a few hours. I will be back by noon. What about our typical routine of church and breakfast? I queried, but she didn't catch the irritation in my voice. We'll forego breakfast and head to lunch instead. How about that Mexican restaurant at the Arboretum? She suggested. I will see you there at lunchtime, I replied, silently challenging her to arrive on time. She kissed Mikey and me goodbye before leaving the room. I turned to Mikey and asked, "So kid, what do you want to do?" He giggled as we resumed our game. At noon, Mikey and I were seated at the restaurant. I got a quesadilla starter and a Sprite for him, which he thoroughly appreciated. By 12:30, she was still missing. The waitress inquired, "Is there any word from your buddy, or do you want to place an order?" "No, just the check, please." "My small one is becoming agitated," I said, sensing the agitation of the packed eatery. The waitress rubbed my shoulder sympathetically, saying, "I understand how difficult it is to deal with restless children. I have 3 of my own." My phone rang while she walked away, but I ignored Alicia's call. Instead, she texted, "I am on my way. I will be there in half an hour. Are you serious, Mikey?" I exhaled. What will I do with her? Unsurprisingly, he did not answer. I typed my reply, "I will not be waiting." I turned off my phone, paid the bill, and prepared Mikey for his journey to the car. It was time to take decisive action. I couldn't continue to let her lie and oppress me. I refused to allow her to represent me as the fool I once was. Granted, Mikey made a difference. But given her unpredictable work schedule, I was confident I could gain custody of him. A few minutes later, I strode through my kitchen, dropping my keys onto the table. Setting Mikey down, he dashed off like a wind-up toy toward the family room where his toys were waiting. The house phone rang, but I ignored it and followed him. Mikey adored his playpen, pulling himself up on its netting as he made his way into the family room. "Well, looks like someone's eager to play in their little enclosure. All right, pal." As I settled him in, the phone rang once more. "Mommy won't be pleased, will she?" I teased. He giggled, clutching his toy. "Mikey," someone wise once said, "never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Mommy keeps making mistakes." All I heard in response was the toy chiming. The cow says, "Moo." "Enjoy yourself, buddy," I said, tickling his side and eliciting a cascade of laughter. For some reason, the image of Robert Plant exclaiming, "Does anybody remember laughter?" crossed my mind. I made a mental note to listen to some Led Zeppelin. Later, I cracked open a beer, settled onto the couch next to my son, and powered up my cell phone. A slew of voicemails from my wife awaited me, which I promptly deleted without a listen. I was confident she'd reiterate everything once she got home. Dana Collins had sent a couple of urgent texts, but I brushed them off. Naturally, it took her 30 minutes, and I was on to my second beer by the time she entered the kitchen. Her hair was tied back in a ponytail, a departure from the morning. I gestured for her to hold off on the inevitable shouting match. "Mikey's asleep," I informed her, nodding toward the playpen where he was sleeping soundly. "He should be in his crib," she remarked, and I concurred, allowing her to escort him to his room. Meanwhile, I slipped into my car and drove off to the cigar lounge. Yeah, I know some might say I was avoiding the confrontation, but to me it felt pointless. My marriage was essentially over. She had prioritized work over our family. As I sat facing away from the door, engrossed in an article about bridges, a voice startled me from behind. "You're not difficult to track down, Boyd. If I were evading detection, Dana, I wouldn't be sitting here." She positioned herself in front of me, settling into one of the leather chairs across a small table. "Have you tried this one?" she inquired, displaying her chosen cigar. It was a commendable selection. "No, but it comes highly recommended." "Yeah, that's what Nick mentioned." Nick, the proprietor of the lounge, always had a suggestion ready, particularly for an attractive woman. It seemed to explain how she gained access to the locked private lounge. Dana borrowed my lighter, and I caught myself glancing at her legs, unusually bare. They still retained their allure. It seemed she had recently applied lotion, as they gleamed with a moist sheen. "You're too predictable, Boyd," she teased, crossing her legs in the opposite direction. I took a slow drag from my cigar and impolitely exhaled the smoke in her direction. What's on your mind, Dana? I'm trying to unwind here. She briefly frowned, her eyes betraying a hint of sadness before she spoke. I have some troubling news. This will be tomorrow's front-page headline, but I wanted to inform you personally before things go south. She pushed her phone across the table with a smirk as I glanced down her blouse. What should I be searching for? The video's ready. Just take a peek. She took a drag from her cigar, then coughed. My laughter halted midway when I played the video on her phone. It showed my wife and David Bridges kissing in an office. I threw the phone onto the table and leaned back. I'm sorry, Boyd. Truly, but there's more. Why apologize? You've got the scoop of the year. And when did you start caring about collateral damage? It's never hit this close to home before, she murmured. I exhaled. Do you know what's the worst part of all this? She shook her head, and I fought back tears, forcing myself to look away. That jerk didn't even take a week to seduce her. He's also having affairs with the other 2 women on his legal team. I shrugged as if it matters. I was headed for divorce anyway. This just seals the deal. A smirk crossed Dana's face, then vanished. She seemed to relish the demise of my marriage, probably thinking it positioned her to swoop in and console me. Send me that video, please. I can't, Boyd. The story isn't— Screw your story, I yelled, slamming my hand on the table. I rose, offering a silent apology to the few men in the room. Fine, she relented without a fight. Just don't make it public, I scoffed. I walked to my locker, grabbed a bottle of Macallan 25-year-old single malt. If ever there was a time for a drink, it was now. I filled 2 generous glasses and settled back into my seat. Dana helped herself to one without asking, and I relit my cigar. Thanks, she murmured after a sip. Her attempt to conceal her grimace betrayed her lack of familiarity with scotch. I honestly never thought she'd betray me like that. I always believed she valued her reputation too much to take such a risk. It's him, you know. He's notorious for chasing after women. We just couldn't gather concrete evidence. No, it's on her sleeping with him in his office within a week. She was seeking it out. How did you manage to obtain that video? Well, it's a felony to install a camera like that. So, let's just say it wasn't me. Okay, let's call it an anonymous source and leave it at that. Her grin contradicted her words, but I decided not to pursue the matter. Sure, whatever. I powered on my phone to upload the video to the cloud and received a text from Alicia. You need to come home so we can talk. I groaned and replied, no need to talk, we're done. Enjoy your time with Bridges. Tomorrow's headlines will be interesting. I switched off the phone and observed Dana as she took a long drag from the cigar, her head thrown back. There was a certain allure to a woman smoking a cigar, not as captivating as her legs, but still. Your wife? She inquired. I nodded and took a sip of my scotch, remarking, I wished her luck with handling the press tomorrow. She'll probably assume you leaked the story to me. I'm confident you'll vouch that I wasn't your undisclosed source. Tomorrow's going to be chaotic for you, she cautioned. Yeah, I know. No matter what, I'm in trouble, so I'll just stick to my routine, deal with whatever comes my way, and you're fresh out of bubble gum. Look at you, referring to cheesy 1980s movies, she chuckled. It's a cult classic, man. My cigar burned out after an additional hour of casual chat. If I had believed she'd agree, I would have ordered a few more just to give myself an excuse to keep staring at her. But it was time to leave. Be careful, Boyd. I really apologize. You're a wonderful guy who doesn't deserve this. Okay, well, that is what it is, I guess. I'll catch you later. I made the decision to check into a hotel. I was not prepared to confront my soon-to-be ex-wife until it was absolutely necessary, and it was most likely the following day that everything exploded. I awoke at 6 a.m. and turned on the news. The tumultuous situation had started and was being broadcast on all channels. I made a cup of terrible motel coffee and started the shower. Earlier, I had swung by the store to get some clothes and amenities for my hotel, unsure of when or if I'd be back home. I prepared for a week, and the warmth of the water was comfortable despite the low water pressure. That was the least of my problems. After I finished showering, I turned on my phone and ignored all the text I received. Rose, I have no live show today. Find a guest host or broadcast a pre-recorded show. She responded, I received the news. I apologize. The phone rang, and it was Alicia. I ignored it and turned up the television's volume. The anchor made an announcement. We have breaking news. Following the Times story that David Bridges was having an affair with his lawyer, Alicia Taylor, a graphic video has emerged. Viewers are cautioned to use their judgment. I saw footage of them kissing and him groping her breasts. Fortunately, they finished it there. The co-anchor noted, this completely contradicts Governor Bridges' claim that he and his counsel were not romantically involved. We attempted to contact Alicia Taylor for comment, but have not received a response. I decided to browse through the messages to see what explanations my wife was making. What are you referring to here? David and I are not sleeping together. Stop being unreasonable and return home. However, the communications from the following morning revealed a different story. It's not true. We're not having an affair, Boyd. Please give me a call. I vow to you that it is not true. I adore you. The subsequent text stated, "We merely kissed," implying that she was watching TV. That's it, and it was a mistake. I shook my head and replied to the message, "I know there is more on that video. We caught you, and we're done." She called constantly, but I turned off the phone and watched pundits analyze Bridges and his supposed indiscretions. Surprisingly, they concentrated on him rather than my soon-to-be ex-wife, which was somewhat relieving. I reasoned that if her name was discussed less, so would mine. When I checked my voicemail, I found multiple messages from Alicia, as well as inquiries from news stations seeking my remarks. I briefly considered appearing on one of the shows to make a statement and face criticism, but I had a better idea. Finally, maintaining silence was in my best interests, following the standard procedure for betrayed spouses. I divided our assets, discontinued joint credit cards, and worked with my attorney to update and file legal documentation. I sought full custody, noting her frequent absence from the family. My lawyer felt sure that I had an excellent chance of winning primary custody under a joint arrangement, especially given the proof of the affair, which may potentially avoid the need for counseling or compliance with scheduling requirements in the event of irreconcilable differences. I didn't necessarily feel happy, but I did feel relieved that I had finally put an end to the facade of my failing marriage. She clearly prioritized her work over me, and it was brutally obvious that her love for me was insufficient to prevent her cheating. While checking the home security stream on my phone, I noticed her sitting on the couch weeping, watching over Mikey, who was asleep. I couldn't tell whether her cries were for our failing marriage or the upheaval she had caused in her distinguished job. I considered exacting revenge on Bridges, devising other kinds of public humiliation, or anticipating whatever penalties his wife might inflict. However, none of these behaviors sprang from me. I felt forced to do anything to restore my pride. Ultimately, I discarded the concept as ridiculous. Bridges was heavily guarded, so any attempt to contact him would be pointless. His security detail would grab me and probably resort to violence. I decided to let karma take its course. Maybe he will end up with Alicia. That would serve as a lesson. The next day went much like the previous one, except that I had a show to go to. Rose maintained her customary composure, and the mood in the office remained rather peaceful, with the exception of 20 reporters stationed in front of my building. Fortunately, using the door from the secure parking garage allowed me to avoid them and make it to my workplace safely. Rose added, "Boy, your Times acquaintances offered to remove your name from the articles if you agree to have Dana on the show again." I threw up my arms in frustration and yelled, "Are you serious? So, what is the point? Having her on the show may make matters worse. I can't bring her on without discussing her tale. How are you going to avoid talking about it anyway? It's the most significant story of the year. It's my show. I have the authority to decide what to talk about." "Sure," she answered, rolling her eyes, "till the sponsors become enraged and accuse you of being weak." She was correct. I'd get calls from the syndication company and occasionally from the sponsors themselves if they were especially unhappy. Such was the essence of radio life. That's okay. Dana is welcome to participate, but she must maintain civility. My memory is good, Boyd. If she has the opportunity, she will be quite pleasant to you. She laughed and went away. Dana's appearance on the show proved controversial. I couldn't direct the discourse, and her sharp journalistic tongue was out of my control. She would prod and weave around the subject of my wife until I unintentionally answered every question I wished to avoid. An hour later, I put on my headphones and noticed Dana's smile as she did so. The only difference was her crossed legs, which caused her skirt to rise slightly more. While I was not wearing one, I noticed the legal pad in front of her and said, "Are those questions you've prepared?" She gave a lovely giggle and said, "Certainly not. I wouldn't think of going on your show with a planned list of questions." Rose began the countdown to the commencement of the show. Dana said, "Besides, I'm more knowledgeable than you now. My interest in you is entirely professional. 3, 2, 1. The introduction music began, and I took a deep breath. "Listeners, good afternoon." I gave a greeting. "This is Boyd Baxter, your entertaining host, and I'm in the studio with Dana Collins of the Times. How are you doing today, Dana?"
"We are doing fine. Thanks for inviting me, Boyd. The pleasure is solely mine." "So, as always, Congress appears to be in disarray. Can you provide some insight on our political representatives' recent shenanigans as they struggle to pass a budget?
The situation stays unchanged. Defense advocates emphasize their own interests. Conservative factions want to decrease the budget significantly, while progressive groupings want to increase funding. Meanwhile, moderates seek funds for their various projects. Consensus is elusive, similar to hectic traffic in Los Angeles. Dana, as the saying goes, the opposite of pro is con. Congress, therefore, is the polar antithesis of progress. Dana chuckled, accidentally snorting. "No, I cannot believe I snorted," she complained. "Next, I'll have you spray milk down your nostrils." Why are politicians like diapers? Both require regular updates for the same reason. Dana shook her head. That was awful. Let's take some calls. Doug from Springfield is first in line. So, what is going on in Doug's world today? Hi, Boyd. I really enjoy your podcast. I'm sorry about your wife. Many thanks, Doug. Boyd, what can we do to improve our dysfunctional system? Something needs to change in the swamp of Washington. Implement term limits and perform asset audits for lawmakers before and after their tenure. Doug, perhaps genuine progress can be made without the distraction of personal riches. Dana asked, "Do you believe that is going to happen, Boyd?" Nope. No lawmaker from any party will vote in favor of it. Some may claim to favor it, but they know it is unlikely to pass because it will not even be put to a vote. She agreed, pointing out, people like David Bridges believe they can do whatever they want. They consider themselves untouchable. I cringed at the mention of him but didn't say anything. She carried on. They're hungry for power and money. They enjoy the admiration of their followers who eagerly agree with them and lavish them with praise. They advocate on moral high ground before getting involved in issues. It's repellent. Tell us exactly how you feel, I gave a giggle. I apologize if I struck a chord. She became softer. It is what it is. My wife is being unfaithful. What else can I do but lose money to her and the attorneys? A tiny smile appeared on her face and immediately faded. Anyway, this is about internet sex. Annie is from Long Island. Annie, what's on your mind? Boy, I just adore it when Miss Collins appears on your show. You two have a wonderful chemistry. I gave a giggle. I'm a versatile person, Annie. It's like a pinch of salt. I give compliments on everything. Dana rolled her eyes but couldn't stop smiling this time. Have you got any questions, Annie? Yes, it's a basic one, but it is for Miss Collins. Do you want to be a mother? Dana looked perplexed and raised her arms in the air. Annie, you asked an excellent question. Politics and my wife are uninteresting. So, Dana, what is your answer? And Annie, you can't tell, but Dana's face is red right now. I absolutely enjoy children, Dana responded, dodging the question much like the politician she reported on. Annie gave a chirp. You'd better. Boyd has that gorgeous little boy to consider. Okay, I interjected to end the call. Thank you for calling. At any moment to take care of certain bills. We'll be right back. Oh my God, Dana let out an exclamation. This will be a fascinating day, I moaned. Rose gave us a double thumbs up as if it were great radio. It most likely was. I didn't feel especially good. 3 hours later, I made an announcement. We will see you all tomorrow. Don't change because the on-air sign is turned off. I placed my headphones on the desk. Dana hung hers neatly on the opposite hook. Well, that was unexpected, she said. I hadn't anticipated it today. I am undoubtedly being interrogated by elderly women. Hello, those elderly ladies adore me, she grinned. I'm popular among septuagenarian book club members. I'm sure they are your primary fans. Take care now. They also read the newspapers. Check your comments and letters more carefully. Do I want to be a mom? What type of question was it? I laughed as I tucked my notebooks into my suitcase. It's a legitimate question, and I can't help but notice you didn't respond. I sent her a doubtful expression, and she frowned. I cannot imagine myself as a mother. I absolutely adore kids. It's simply that with this job, I don't know how I'd find the time. A rush of sadness overcame her, and she murmured, Jesus, I'm sorry. I'm getting unwell. Don't worry, I interjected. I must admit, however, that children aren't as intimidating as they appear. I'm about to pick up mine from daycare and play with trucks. How do you manage to be so composed, Boyd? Your marriage is collapsing, but you're acting like it's just another Tuesday. What would you have me do? I can't just curl into a ball and cry. I've got a child and a job. I need to hold everything together so nothing falls apart. I'm putting on a brave face and carrying on. Dana, so what else is there? I honestly don't know. I think I was expecting more emotion. I gave a giggle. Emotions are for those who lack strength. I didn't fully believe it, and she saw through me. She caressed my cheek, her expression shifting to a frown. Forgive me, Dana. I have to go to childcare. Thank you for joining us again, anytime. If you ever require anything, please do not hesitate to contact me. I do mean it. Anything. She smiled, and I walked away. Life proceeded. A month later, I sat at my lawyer's office waiting for Alicia's comments. Boyd, I am sorry. It was an error. There's also Alicia. I don't want to hear that. If you think our divorce is entirely because you slept with that man soon after meeting him, you're mistaken. Please stay calm. As my tone became more aggressive, my lawyer stepped in. You have an affair. I mean, just your relationship with him is a deal breaker in itself. However, you have reverted to your old practices from when I originally filed for divorce. You were untrustworthy, manipulative, and ultimately chose your job over our marriage and child. That isn't acceptable. You were already aware of this. That is why you did not discuss accepting the position with me. Boyd, it was only supposed to be jury consultation. I've heard your reasoning, but that wasn't all, was it?
I didn't think so. You got caught up again. To be honest, your rapid engagement with him is like an addiction for you.
I'm confident you've cheated on me before. Just sign the paperwork. I'm more than reasonable. I seek primary custody. She swallowed back tears. I chuckled, and my lawyer said, Miss Taylor, this is a no-go for us. There is no way my client will give up primary custody, especially given your rigorous work schedule. We are confident that a judge will find it best for Michael's well-being. Damn, Alicia. According to my investigator, you've been working 14-hour shifts all week and haven't even asked to see Mikey since you moved out several weeks ago. Who are you trying to fool? She muttered. I love him. I am him. Sure you do. But it appears that you enjoy your job more. You can see him whenever you like. I won't be unreasonable about it. Boyd, I do love you. Truly. Yeah, you could have fooled me, sweetie. I left the office only to learn she had signed the paperwork. My marriage had ended. 6 months later, Alicia had Mikey for the weekend, so I found myself in the cigar lounge. Hello, Nicholas, I greeted as I approached the counter. How's it going, Boyd? Your box of Monte Cristo number 2 has come. I stashed it in your locker. Thanks. Is today busy? Not just a few regulars and a new female member who has just been here a few times. Cool. See you later. After entering my code, I went into the VIP lounge. The aroma of cedar and lingering cigar smoke filled the air, calming me. I recognized the familiar people and, not observing any women, went to my locker to fetch my Cuban cigars. Hi, Boyd. It's been a long time since we last met. I grinned and took an extra cigar. Hi, Dana. I'm ready to try a Cuban today. Going to close my locker, I presented her with the contraband. Thanks, she said. I've sort of been keeping an eye on you. You're not doing a good job. I chuckled as we sat down. I'm not exactly elusive. You also have my telephone numbers. She scowled as she cut the end of the cigar. I've been feeling a little anxious about it. Lighting up with an expensive lighter from her bag, she burned the aged tobacco with caution. I chuckled and exhaled toward the orange halo at the foot of my cigar. What's got you all nervous? I inquired. I'd want to invite you to supper, she admitted. Come on now, I gave a giggle. The woman who used to flirt brazenly, wearing short skirts, crossing her legs, and dangling her heels to tease me, now worried about asking me to dinner. That is hard to believe. She shook her head. This is quite nerve-wracking. Many thanks. I nodded, elated. I've not dated many folks. I was occupied. It was easy to tease you. I've never been shy about using my attractiveness to get what I want from men and, on occasion, women. I arched my brow in surprise. I didn't realize she was interested in women. Cut it out, perv. I am not attracted to women, okay? She has the ability to read people's thoughts. Got it. Look, I'm taking a risk here, and I don't want to get called out for it. That's okay. She released a column of white smoke, wondering what that meant. Yes, I'll join you for dinner. Really? She asked, dumbfounded. Seriously, do you think you're unattractive or something? I teased. No, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not used to dating much. That's okay. Let's finish these and head over to that little Italian place across the street. After dinner, we sat comfortably on my couch with a glass of wine when I inquired. So, do you have time to date me now, or am I just a fleeting encounter for you? She chuckled. Haven't you heard? I'm no longer with the Times. I must have missed that, I replied. I'm on TV now. You know the show. You've appeared on it. It's me and a few other ladies, on a couch with a couple of guys. Yes, I enjoy that show. It's like candy for those of us who appreciate legs, I remarked. She laughed. I suppose it can be, although I opted for pantsuits twice last week. In that case, I might have changed the channel, I joked. We shared a laugh, and then she teasingly asked, So, you're a fan of my legs, huh? Don't pretend to be innocent. You know I love your legs, I retorted. What about my feet? She asked, turning around and placing her feet on my lap. I shrugged and put my glass of wine on the table. "You're wearing jeans and socks today, not your nicest outfit," I teased. I escorted her to my bedroom, where she excused herself and went to the bathroom. I took the opportunity to check if there was any protective equipment in my drawer before getting ready. When I settled down on the bed, the room was dimly lit only by a table lamp. My excitement was palpable, as I was looking forward to the appearance of a beautiful journalist. She and I indulged in a very cool moment that will never leave my memory. It was great. After that, we were lying on the bed, and I decided to gently hint to her that I wanted a relationship, but she apparently did not immediately understand. So I decided to answer directly. "I mean, would you like this to become a regular thing? I'm currently accepting applications for a girlfriend, and so far, you're the only one I have." She replied, "I would love to. Now I have more free time, and I'm ready to think about the long term. I'm ready to become a mom." "Great," I said, "but let's start with you becoming a stepmother." "Okay." I grinned, and she slapped me lightly on the chest. "I'm not cheating," she whispered. "Me too," I confirmed, kissing her forehead again. With this one, it seemed to me that I might have found a person for whom family is more important than work. Only time will tell. But half the joy lies in learning the unknown. After all, if we knew what the future held for us, life would be terribly boring.